Abue's doing it. Britannia's doing it. Lake Buena Vista is doing it. And there's another one.
Which one?
That one is where they can build whatever they want on the lot.
Okay,
It's just putting
we're live. We're here.
Our community.
Hang on, what happened? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Of course, it's 9:30. More people will come online. There's always those that show up late, right? Anyway, it's good to be here. We're just talking, actually, I was just gonna mention that, talking about the the zoning, with the city coming up with being able to almost build wherever you want in any location of the city has definitely caused some controversy, and some communities are fighting back. And I think this is just something to pay attention to for all of us, which is why we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, why it's so important to look at the title and restrictive covenants. And I think that's going to play a major role moving forward, because you're going to see some interesting restrictive covenants put on some of these titles that that may not allow your client to do what they might want to do in a community. So right now, I know Lake Buena Vista is fighting back, and then I think Jill, you had said Alboya is fighting back. Britannia is fighting back, yeah. And from what I understand, these communities aren't so much against having a laneway house. They're more against building like townhouses. Multifamily is what they really don't want. And these communities, I mean, many of these people bought into these communities because there isn't multifamily. That's what they liked most about it. So they're upset that this is changing, that the city went ahead and did it. But just don't ever forget, just because the city says you can do something doesn't mean you can. The title, the restrictive covenant means everything. So I'm glad to see we have lots online today, because we have some guests here, and I invited Lloyd Saad, and I'll let them do a deeper dive into who they are and what they do. But we moved to working with Lloyd Saad this past summer, and just to give you an idea of how this came about, I actually didn't really know anything about Lloyd Saad until last summer. But when I bought Davies Management, I was introduced to Lloyd Saad from Jay up in Edmonton, and Jay basically said, you should deal with Lloyd Saad. So anyway, and so far, everything that Jay has said that I should do has actually been good. So I haven't had one thing that Jay has said to do that it hasn't worked out quite well. So far it has been a great relationship. And I think all of you are going to learn some things today. And I found out even our insurance policy we had previous was not as good as it should have been. And so it's good that we've been able to partner with them now. So I'm going to just share my screen here, and then I'll have them come up and introduce themselves. So give me a second here while I do that. And then I will grab your presentation here as well. And let's see, probably should look like that. How's that? That's
Gotta go back a couple of.
Oh yeah, we got to go back a few slides. I don't know how we got to that. All right, are you coming up first, Neil? All right. Won't trip on that cord.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Rob, for the introduction. My name is Neil Hogg. I'm a broker, senior advisor, whatever term you want to use at Lloyd Saad Insurance. I just recently joined Lloyd Saad through a corporate merger. Last summer, I was with Tool Pete Insurance. We were around since 1897. I've been there 25 years, and we were business partners already with Lloyd Saad for multiple years, and it made good business sense for us to join with Lloyd Saad. So we are now flying the Lloyd Saad banner. As Rob said, one of the things that we do have in place is we did chat about the insurance policies, the commercial policies that are in place, not just for Rob and the brokerage, but also for you guys as agents and discovered that, which we'll see when we go through the presentation, not uncommon that some of the products that are in the standard marketplace just don't meet the needs of a brokerage and an agent relationship. So we do have a new policy in force that will cover you guys properly. And this is basically my presentation just to go through that. If there's any questions at the end, I suppose we can go through that. I'm not sure how Rob runs his questions at the end, but so basically what we call it is a real ProSure. That's the terminology that we created for this program. It was created back in 2006, and we are coast to coast. We have clients in BC, and we run provincial programs out in the East Coast, Newfoundland and New Brunswick, and I was just on a call the other day with Nova Scotia. So it's a program that's across the country. I always like to start with a little bit of history. So where did this real ProSure came from? As I said, Tool Pete. Tool Pete was a brokerage, again, started in 1897, but we were also in the real estate space. Back in 1897, they were also CP land agents and did all the deals for Mount Royal here in Calgary, did the land deal for the Palliser Hotel for the first Stampede in 1911. So as that evolved, Tool Pete also got into real estate. We were Tool Pete Real Estate for many, many years. And in addition to having a property management and an insurance division. We got out of the real estate space about 10, 15 years ago after buying a Prudential office. We tried to go national, but we ended up selling to Royal LePage. So we got out of the real estate space, we got out of the property management space, and now we focused on insurance. Now, part of the learnings we got from being in both industries is that we saw lots of claims being denied, lots of products that weren't adequate for the real estate professional. And so this program was designed as a result of that. The key to this was a claim that was actually upheld in court in 2006, and we can get into that when we start talking specifically about some of the wording differences between our product and that's in the marketplace. So I always throw this in. Why do you need insurance? Obviously, some of those things in there are pretty obvious. One of the biggest one is litigation expense. We see lots of lawsuits that are frivolous, don't have any merit, but you still got to defend yourself, pay for lawyers, go through the hassle. Insurance is probably one of the better elements of having a proper insurance policy in place. And control. I'm going to focus on control a little bit on this slide, just because the policy that we have in place is from the broker, purchased by the brokerage on behalf of you guys as the agents. And the nice thing about the control is, well, everyone in the brokerage now has the same type of policy. It's not like some have insurance, some don't have insurance. All agents that work for this brokerage will now have the same level and same standard of policies. So Rob and everybody else that interacts in the office will have the right and the proper coverage. This is one of the biggest questions we get. Well, what do you guys have and how is that different from RE/X? I was at a conference up in Edmonton last week or 2 weeks ago. That was probably my number one question again. So what RE/X does is provide professional liability insurance. They have a mandatory 1 million limit, and that's for professional coverage. So that's, the intangible financial cost or loss to one of your clients or another person within the real estate transaction due to an error that you make. What we focus on with this program is the general liability side, which are tangible losses, property damage or bodily injury as a result of negligence from an agent or alleged negligence from an agent. Now, we do have elements of errors and omissions as well. RE/X does not cover property management. So we do have errors and omissions in place and options for those brokerages and those agents that do sell and do get involved rather with property management. So, but our focus with this program really is the general liability element. And that's the focus of this presentation. Let me get to the next slide. So who is covered? And this is one of the big things that we discovered with the marketplace is listed agents, as you see the third or fourth point down. With a standard policy that a brokerage would buy in the insurance marketplace, because agents are contractors, they're independent, the general liability wordings do not extend to agents. Our policy does. That's been amended to make sure that when a brokerage purchases the policy on behalf of his or her agents, those agents are also covered should there be a claim. So the broker's covered, the brokerage is covered, the owners, the D&O of the brokerage are covered, listed agents. Now, not only the listed agents, but their employees, licensed or unlicensed, as well as any professional corporations. So a lot of agents will have their own businesses, their own teams. Those corporate entities, those employees are all covered by one policy. So a very comprehensive list of who's insured. Again, way more comprehensive and broad than what's available in the standard marketplace. Limits provided by this program: $5 million bodily injury, property damage. Now I will stop there and just make sure that everyone's aware that every single soul gets that $5 million. It's not $5 million for everyone in the brokerage. Every single agent gets their own $5 million limit. So if somebody is called into a claim, it does not reduce the protection that other agents have or the brokerage. So everyone has their own $5 million. It's not affected by anybody else within the group. There's only a $1,000 deductible for property damage and no deductible for bodily injury. So if someone were to get hurt and sue you, there's no deductible. Someone's house gets damaged, there is a $1,000 deductible, which is the lowest that we've seen. A couple of uniquenesses to the program: lost or stolen bank drafts for $100,000. We always seem to have a claim here and there throughout the course of a year where a customer gives an agent a bank draft and for some reason it doesn't make it where it needs to go. It gets lost along the way. Mysterious disappearance. That would be, it's almost like a property coverage. That would be if someone accuses you of, hey, we had a showing and now my watch collection's missing, or my expensive art that was on the wall is now gone. Now they got to prove that you did something, but we do have the coverage in there for the defense if there is a lawsuit that comes from something like that.
Is there homeowners insurance first cover something like that?
That is excellent. And I will segue because we do talk about where do these claims come from, and then maybe that's a good point. So a lot of claims that we get against realtors are demands or what we call subrogation from homeowners insurance policies. So if you have someone, maybe a house burns down, there's water damage, yeah, the home insurance policy, in most cases, and we'll get into why I say most cases, not all cases in a minute. Yeah, the home insurance policy will respond, but then they start looking around. Who caused the loss? Who's responsible? And then they'll send demand letter, or they'll send they'll subrogate, as we call it, against who they think is responsible. And in a lot of cases, it's the agent. So a lot of claims we get are filed against agents from insurance companies that just paid out for damages. So good question. So lost listing expenses. We added this a few years ago due to the fires up in northern Alberta. As agents, you're going to incur costs, capital costs to list a property, be it measurements, be it drones for photographs. What happens if a fire goes through, like it did in northern Alberta a few years back? Takes out a bunch of properties that you have listed. You're out that expense. You're out all that money that you put into that sale or trying to sell it because the property no longer exists. We added this $2,500 per listing benefit to the program. So if something like that were to happen, then you can make a claim against the policy and you can regain some of the money that you put into listing the property, up to $2,500 a say, like per listing. So not per loss, not per area, but per listing that you have in that area. So something that's unique, and only been around about 4 or 5 years, but knock on wood, we haven't had too many claims, but it is there in case it is needed. So Jasper would have been a great idea. It would have been a great example if we had, and we work with that group in that part of Alberta as well. So any agents up there that would have lost the property that were listed, they could make the claim under this.
And so Jasper had fire around it forever as well.
Right.
So nobody could buy a home and get insurance. So how long does that $2,500 cover you for? Because no one can buy a home in Jasper.
Right now, it's like business interruption. It has to be a physical damage loss for this to be triggered. Yeah. So good question, but yeah, it has to be physically damaged. Yeah. The last one I have it there for a reason, and I have it bolded for a reason. Care, custody, and control. Under every general liability policy, there is an exclusion for care, custody, and control. meaning that there's no coverage if you are in control of someone's property. The court case I mentioned earlier from 2006 was an appeals court upheld a denial of coverage for an agent when they had smoke damage during an open house. The judge agreed that having an open house as an agent triggers care, custody, and control, and therefore no coverage under the policy. So if you have an agent that has an open house over the course of a weekend, and that property were to get damaged and that agent were to get blamed, under standard policies, this is not covered. Our policy, however, does cover it. We have a 72-hour carve back for that exclusion. So if you have an open house on the course of a weekend, damage to the property occurs, this policy will respond. To me, this is probably one of the biggest differences from our program to that of the current marketplace. So this is quite a large exposure, is how many open houses are held throughout the course of the year. So again, very unique to the program. I'm not aware of any other policy or any other wording in the country that has this kind of amendment to the wording. So access to Real ProSure, this is just kind of way we have it set up with Rob. We do have it for the brokerage. As you can see, the brokerage buys it on behalf of agents, but we do have individual agents that come to us via online. We deal with like, say, the province of New Brunswick. They mandate our program out there. So every single agent in that province has our policy. Newfoundland as well, but working with a few other provinces. But we're with option A here, where the Rob as the broker has purchased this policy on behalf of the agents. So a real summary, I always like to have this up here so everyone can see it in just a snapshot. The no general aggregate, like I said, just a reminder that the $5 million limit is for everybody. One loss for one agent doesn't affect the coverage of another. There's no deductible for bodily injury. That care, custody, and control amendment, and of course, things like lost listing expenses, mysterious disappearance, some uniquenesses added on the program. I always like to chat about some claims examples. So that's usually where the rubber hits the road. With insurance, you don't have a claim. It's what is it? But we have some pretty interesting claims examples. So agent forgets to lock up. We get claims like this all the time, where the accusation is the property wasn't secured after a showing or an open house, and someone's broken in, stolen something, or vandalized the property. So, and they blame the last agent that was there for that damage. Now, again, whoever's making the claim has to prove it. Now, we just had one 2 weeks ago where, the agent who was accused of it says that wasn't them, and now it's back and forth trying to determine, well, who was at fault. But now the insurance company's involved. There was a claim filed against that agent, but the defense and all the costs associated with investigation are picked up by the insurance policy.
What exactly happened? Did somebody break into the house?
Yep, they left the property, and then when the homeowners came back to the property, the place was vandalized. Yeah, so someone obviously got in there. There was no forced entry, evident that someone hadn't locked up or hadn't done something, right? So now it's they made a claim, like we've mentioned, against their home insurance policy because there was enough damage for that, and now we're dealing with who's responsible for it. So we've had similar ones where water taps haven't been. We had one last week actually where an agent, it was actually down east, was blamed for leaving a tap on, and the water overflowed and caused damage. So we get lots of claims like that the homeowner comes back to the property after the property's had showings or an open house to find damage. So we had one, didn't go very far, but we had claims expenses. Was someone went after an agent because they bought a property, liked everything. Dog next door was barking all the time. They didn't like that. They thought, well, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have bought the property. And they actually tried to sue the agent for not giving them that detail as part of the process of buying the property. It didn't go very far, but again, there was a claims expense. There was a statement of claim filed. This silly, but still costs and hassle that the policy did respond to.
Well, speaking of pets, what about if a pet gets out of the house and goes missing?
Goes missing.
Yeah.
Well,
Jeez.
well, you know,
I once chased the dog.
used to count
I
long
chased the
and a half.
dog. 2 hours I chased the dog around the neighborhood when I kept that dog.
well, well, you know, with insurance, that's interesting because we're very rigid and, well, what's the loss? The dog got out, yes, that's terrible. I'm a dog owner. I love dogs. I would be horrified if my dog got out of the house. But the insurance would respond. I don't know how it would respond because there's no, what are the damages, right? If the dog got injured and it was say it was a prize dog and it was a breeding dog or it was an expensive dog, I guess one could claim for that.
Damages, like.
Well, there could be something like that, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see how policy would respond, but it would respond in defense if nothing else. If it turned into an actual claim or not would be another story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. It's good to know that there's coverage. I mean, I think if someone tries to sue for a barking dog, you can imagine they're gonna try to do something for a lost dog.
Yeah.
Cats.
Well, we had a claim against a property manager a couple of weeks ago where somebody claimed that the dog got out and actually it bit somebody. And the claim came in almost 2 years after it happened. And that's another thing too we have to remember too. When it comes to claims, people can file claims up to 2 years after the incident occurred. So sometimes it's very difficult to deal with. But again, the insurance policies deal with that and investigate it to the best of their ability. So yeah. The next one is an important one to talk about because it touches on a couple of topics. There was water damage to a condo from a cleaner who had left a tap on. And the agent had actually hired the cleaner. It wasn't in a separate agreement between the owner or the potential owner and this cleaner. Turns out the cleaner was a friend of the agent, used her, I think, all the time. Problem was the cleaner didn't have their own insurance. So the agent was responsible at the end of the day for not just the damage to that condo, but it was an apartment style condo, so there was other damages to the rest of the building. So it turned into a bit of a mess. One of the due diligence things or best practices later on is, you know, I guess I'll talk about it now, is if you're going to do that, make sure that if you're associated with someone like that, that they have their own insurance. Just in case it doesn't, just make sure it doesn't blow back on you, just in case something does happen. I think that one was a couple $100,000 worth of damage. As you can imagine, water damage in a condo building, right? Probably a couple of hundred, probably light compared to what it could have been. Wrong light switch. I put that on there because agent was clearing up after showing, turning off lights, which isn't uncommon. One of the light switches wasn't a light switch. It was it ran the underground irrigation system. Depending on the time of year, I don't know the exact mechanics of what happened, but the irrigation system got damaged and they had to dig it all up and redo this person's irrigation system, which was covered by the policy. Now, there's arguments as to how is the agent supposed to know what that switch was for, et cetera, but the policy did respond to it at the end of the day for repair to the person's irrigation system. So, this one I remember myself. This one, I think, this one, I was sitting there when this one came in. We had a showing where an agent was out on a viewing with one of his clients, and the agent unfortunately slipped and fell down some stairs. Well, unfortunately, landed on his client at the bottom of the stairs of all luck. Well, this guy was some oil and gas CEO. He was out of commission for a while, and it was close to $250,000. He actually sued his agent because of the injuries and he couldn't work, et cetera, and it actually was a legitimate claim, and the policy paid out. So some very strange stuff where you would think, well, is someone really going to sue an agent over that? Well, yeah, people do.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Both of us.
Not on this list, but we had one that's not on this list, and maybe I should add it on here. We had a claim where a tree fell over on somebody. Somebody was showing somebody the property, and it was windy outside. Some tree fell over, landed on the client, and he sued the homeowner, the agent. Yeah, it's not on this list, but maybe it should be because that's a silly one as well.
So if debris fell off of the downtown condo, we cover that as well.
Yeah.
Or would that
Yeah,
be covered
well,
by building?
You know, where the actual negligence falls is always a discussion point after the fact. But can you get a statement of claim filed against you and get sued? Sure. Will a policy respond in defense? Yes. Whose negligence is always a case for investigation, and that's part of the problem. Like, how long does it take? Was someone partially responsible? What are the costs associated with that? In a lot of cases, we see that being the biggest hassle. You may not be negligent, but you're in for legal costs just to defend yourself. So, good question, but yeah, who's responsible is always a mystery. But they take years and lots of money to figure that out sometimes.
Ultimately, the plaintiff always feels you're responsible.
Oh, yeah. And if you guys have ever seen statement of claims and how they're written, they throw everything in there but the kitchen sink. You look like you're the most awful person on the planet when they file these things, and that's just the way they're developed, right? And then you got to go through the process of defending yourself. Now, the plaintiff always has the burden of proof. They have to prove that you're negligent, right? But you still have to go through that whole process. So, and the last one I have on here is, like I was talking about, we always get the odd accusation every year about something going missing from a showing. But I don't think I've seen only seen small payouts on this. I don't think I've seen anything large, but it's always a risk that someone's going to accuse you of something going missing from a showing. So
they have to prove that they did own this watch or whatever.
Yeah, and even for them to make, like you said earlier, the home insurance policy isn't going to pay out for it either, unless there's proof, or there's, like with watches and these things, you usually have to have them scheduled because every homeowner's policy is going to have limitations on jewelry or furs or those kinds of things. So yeah, there is a process associated with that, but it could come back if they go through all that it gets back to the fact that the agent might be responsible. Because the home insurance policy is not going to pay out either until it's verified. You can't just turn around and say my Rolex got stolen, but you don't have it scheduled. There's no bill of sale. Don't file a police report. That's a great one. I mean, you're going to go down the road of filing a false police report. I mean, these kinds of things, right? So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff ahead of this before it comes to the agent. But the odd one does crop up from time to time where it seems like it might be legitimate. So
yeah, do they have to prove that the watch was stolen?
Yeah.
How do they prove that?
Good question. Yeah, how do they know it was stolen then? And that's the defense of the agent, right? So good question. And maybe there is evidence, maybe there isn't. There's cameras, maybe there isn't. I don't know, right? So
we had one where they had a freezer full of meat, and they claimed that the realtor tripped the cord and it was July and they were away on vacation. They got home, all the meat was gone rotten. Yeah. And they put a claim into us for $5,000, for meat, but they had no receipts to prove they had $5,000 worth of meat. They just said they had $5,000 worth of meat.
Yeah.
Well, how do we know, right?
exactly.
They didn't go anywhere, but I guess if they would have had all the receipts for the $5,000, they would have been claimed.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If that had been me, I would have suggested that they make the home claim under the homeowner's policy first. Right? And then if the insurance company then they would then sever. It's like no different that if someone ran their car into your house. You would need to make a claim on your house first. And then your insurance company, after fixing your house, would go after the insurance company of the person driving the car. So, but you're right. If they didn't have receipts, their own insurance company wouldn't have paid for it either. Maybe that's why they came directly to you guys.
Well, what they do is they say, well, we're not going to our insurance company because our insurance is going to go up. It's your fault. Your company, your insurance has to pay for it because we don't even want to talk to our insurance policy.
Yeah.
So that's the response we get.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon. And you know what? I don't blame them, I guess, to a certain degree if it is legitimate. But yeah, hopefully we don't have too many of those. But that's an interesting one. But yeah, if you don't have the receipts, then what are you going to do about it? Right. So yeah. Some best practices, like I mentioned. I think the last one and the first one are similar. If you're going to give referrals, give options. You don't want to be, hey, you gave me this referral, I used them, and whoever they happen to be didn't do a good job or they damaged my property. If you got people that for, I don't know, everything from measuring to taking drone pictures, give them a couple of names so the homeowner can make that decision, and that kind of doesn't blow back on you because that was their choice of who they hired. The last one, Subcontractors similarly, but again, around the whole concept, if you're going to have a person in your network that you refer to your clients, make sure they have their own insurance. There's nothing wrong with it, just make sure they have their own insurance. That's very common, I'm sure, but that's just a condo loss was a good example of it. It happens. I'm gonna focus a little bit on the homeowner's insurance and vacant homes. Earlier, I said when I answered your question that most times insurance policies for the homeowner is going to respond. Caveats on that is if the property is vacant. So insurance policies will cover vacant properties up to 30 days. Past 30 days, unless the insurance company's been made aware of it and they can adjust the policy accordingly, there's no coverage. So if you have a client that's taking a job out of town, their property is vacant because, well, they've moved already because they had to move and the house is being sold, having that conversation with that customer, make sure that they have spoken to or suggest that they speak to their home insurance provider and told them that it's vacant. Because like we said, a lot of claims come from insurance companies. Well, in a case like that, if there's no insurance company, then it's full barrel on the agent and the brokerage if there's no insurance company on the property. Or there could be other losses that have nothing to do with the agent that aren't covered either. So in the client's best interest, always good if you're dealing with a vacant property. It doesn't matter if it's a commercial risk, doesn't matter if it's a residential exposure or residential home, sorry, that you have that conversation, make sure that they're aware that there's no coverage after 30 days if they don't talk to their own agent or their broker. So, and then I put this disclosure lockboxes. We've had claims where people that we've talked to our clients where, laughingly, they say that clients have come to them and said, well, we didn't know that our key was in the lockbox after the lockbox has been broken and someone accessed their house. We've actually had that, it's on there. You think it would be silly for people to make that statement, but it is kind of funny that some of the information we get back from our clients as to what they're accused of by their clients. So just disclosure on anything, I guess. Lockboxes is just a silly example, but discussions on what the risk is. Hey, there's a lockbox out there. Other risks that might come up. So that is my presentation. I don't know how questions or if anyone online has any questions. Not sure how we run through those.
Look in the chat, see if anybody can put in on chat. I don't know, but
I can stop sharing, I guess, here. Don't see where that would be. Let me get out of the way
give
here.
me a second here.
Sure, sure.
There we go. There's chat. Nobody has any questions this morning on chat for Neil? Or you can even speak up if you want to. Everyone's so quiet at these meetings when they're online. I don't know what it is. You do something online. What about anybody here?
We already asked our question.
We already asked our questions. Well,
Are you sure you're still on?
I don't know what happened to the things on the bottom, but we are live. Oh, yeah, we're still here. I don't know where it all went. It's weird. Yeah. It's a good point, Sandro. I don't know what happened to that. It's like it's buried. Anyway.
Can we get Neil's contact info again?
Neil's contact info, yes. I gotta keep passing me my glasses there. You wouldn't mind. Can't see a thing without these things.
It just should be on the first. Yeah.
It's on the first slide right here. There's Neil's information. So you can put Neil on speed dial.
Sure. No problem.
I mean, I'm gonna just add something to what Neil said, and then I think Jill's got a few words here to say too. And it's funny. The funny thing about insurance is, even though I don't know a ton about insurance, not anywhere near what they know, they live in this world, I don't. But I do know one thing, you never really know how good insurance you have until you need it, right? Until there's a claim. And you try very hard to think of every possible scenario that you could come up with, or at least the common scenarios, to know that we are covered. And, you know, when I looked at our old policy and realized we actually had gaps in our old policy, and, you know, when I met with Neil, he was able to identify what some of those gaps were. And, you know, and you don't know what you don't know, because we're just humming along, everything's fine, until, you know, you think that, you know, you think you're okay, and then all of a sudden some strange things happen. So you can see what we're trying to do here is give everybody a pretty high level of protection. So quite frankly, between REX and between the policy we have working with Lloyd Sad, you know, I'm sure there could still be some crazy thing that could happen that you could have never dreamed of, that might be challenging for the insurance company. They might deny it. There's always that possibility. You can never rule that out 100%. But I think for real estate, I think we've covered probably about most of every scenario that we're going to come across when it comes to a real estate practice. And I think all of us now can take great comfort, you know, as we work with clients, as we do open houses, as we list these houses, and as we take buyers into houses, you know, that we've got this level of coverage, because not every brokerage has this in Alberta. And I think it's worth even mentioning. Maybe you want to be careful how much you mention it, but you know, but if you're talking to a client, you know, one of the things that I do often ask people when I go on a listing appointment is, you know, what are you looking for in a real estate agent, or what do you need to see in a brokerage? It's not often people say, well, I'm concerned about security, or I'm concerned about how you guys are going to, you know, look after my house, and what if something does go wrong? Not too many people do bring that up. So it doesn't always come into play, and it's not always part of the conversation, but it may not be a bad thing. Now that, you know, we're in this, listening to Neil this morning, this may not be a bad thing to talk about as one more reason why they should hire us, as opposed to hiring somebody else, because we have that level of insurance coverage that can give them their peace of mind. So it's easy to say to your client, say, look, we would highly recommend you put away your gold watch, put away your diamond necklaces, please. Let's secure everything. If there's any real valuables in this house, we are going to have strangers coming into the house. Let's put away everything, or you know, get some stuff in a safety deposit box, whatever it would take. But just in case, you know, that maybe there is something, that lamp that you had that is worth, you know, $10,000, and it broke because somebody tripped on it. You know, there is coverage, you know, that can give you your peace of mind in our brokerage for that. And that might be the difference between them hiring you or not hiring you.
Is there like a slide or something that we could have, some sort of PDF that the brokerage could use that explains to our clients the additional insurance that we carry?
Yeah, we have a copy of the policy, and I think we did upload it.
But not the policy, just like a slide to put into our sellers.
Oh, to put into the seller's pack presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could actually come up with that. But
That just has a little
We
bit.
can work on that too. We do have some internal marketing folks that are awesome at putting the stuff together.
Mhm.
So I do have like a brochure that I use, and so I could probably make a version of that has, you know, highlights of what that might be. I can send it along to you, and we can work on it. We can probably have something internally developed for you.
yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah,
point.
it's
Yeah,
a
we
very
can do
good point,
that.
yeah. Good. Now, Jill is here as well, and I'm going to have Jill come up and introduce herself. I'm just going to see, though, before I do that, if I can. I was going to stop sharing. I don't know, maybe we're not sharing anymore.
We're not sharing right now.
We're not sharing right now. Okay, good. Yeah, I just don't know why the bottom part of this meeting isn't here, but anyway. Yeah, so come on up, Jill, and you can introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Correct the table. Hi, I'm Jill Carberry Feldman. I've been with Lloyd Sad just about 2 years now, but I've been in the insurance industry for about 12. And now how I stumbled across Rob was through Jay at Davies Property Management. I started working with Jay about 2018 when I was working for an insurtech company. And what he was looking for was renter's insurance for all of his tenants. So what we did was we developed a program for him on renter's insurance. And then he called me again and he said, how about condo insurance and rented condo insurance? So I developed a program for that as well. And then he phoned and said, now I have homes and rented homes. So once more, we developed a program. And then he asked me about his commercial insurance. And I was like, oh, we're not doing that at this tech company. So fast forward, I moved to Lloyd's Ad. We have everything, and we were able to write his commercial property management. We're able to save him some insurance dollars because we have a great company that we work with called Waypoint, and that is owned by our overall company, Navicord. So we're able to give fantastic rates on condo. So for property managers right now, commercial and residential property managers, we give great rates for all of that. So we can absolutely do any insurance for you. So homes, rented homes, high net worth. So we work with a lot of high net worth homes, which would be a value, but about 1.5 million and up. And these are people with wine collections, with your Breitling watches, your diamonds, your furs, all that kind of stuff. So, and that's pretty much what I do then is I call myself an insurance matchmaker. I find the right broker for you to work with within Lloyd's Ad and match you up. So if you have home insurance that, people are, your client goes, oh, do you have a good home insurer? Think Lloyd's Ad, because we can actually develop a little link for you that says Coldwell Banker on it. So we know that it's coming from your company, Coldwell Banker, and you give that to your client, they click on it and it'll go directly to one of our brokers and myself. I'll get a copy of that as well. So that's it. Any questions?
Yeah,
Sure.
condo insurance.
Yes.
It's we've had a couple of strange situations come up where it was an apartment condo.
Right.
Water was leaking down below. The condo board's insurance does not cover that.
What was it coming from one of the, so what we can do is we can give, when you're going into these condo associations, what we do is we have the difference between what the condo corp covers and why individual condo owners need condo insurance. So condo and rented condo. So it depends, like, I don't know what that specific situation was, whether it was someone left a tap on, someone left a bathtub on, where the leak actually came from. So that it would, if it was actually the tenant's fault, they should have a rented condo policy. If they have a tenant or a condo policy, if they had a tenant in that condo, that tenant needs a policy. So when there's a condo or an apartment building, there's layers of insurance. There's a tenant policy that's needed if it's a rented condo, and then the overall condo policy as well. So there's 3 layers of insurance if it's rented. If it's just an individual owner, the individual owner still needs a policy. And what we do is we look at what the condo policy, the overall condo policy covers, and then that's where, or what's required. A lot of condo owners or condo boards are asking for $2 million worth of liability. We only have to sell 1 million, like that's what the limit is. But if that condo owner or that condo board asks for 2 million, we'll do the 2 million, because they often get a copy of that policy and they want it for their records as well. So, I mean, we work with the condo boards and the condo owners as to what their needs are for,
Yeah, because that case was the owner left the water running in the bathtub and it leaked down into the unit below.
yeah. So the condo owner should have a policy.
Yeah, they didn't.
Well, then they're liable.
And this is one of the reasons I bring this up is because, and even though it's not really our, as far as real estate agents, it's not necessarily our job to give people insurance advice, but it can go a long way if you just talk about it, right?
Yeah.
You're selling the condo.
Yeah. And I've in the past, I've actually gone to condo board meetings and just told them the difference, or their AGMs, and described the differences between a condo policy, like the overall condo court policy, the individual condo owner policy, and then the need for a tenant policy if needed. So yeah, that's just something to
do
do.
without jumping is the condo act changed not that long ago where they could make the condo unit owner responsible for $50,000 of damage to their policy.
Yes.
Like to the condo corp policy, so not every insurance company gives those, called, I remember the
Condo
term.
deductible buy down.
So not every insurance carrier will give up to that $50,000 limit, so you gotta be cognizant as well as our people in personal lines are of what carriers will give that proper coverage, because some will only give 25,000. But yeah, but like when the act changed a couple of years ago, the 50,000 was a bit of a shocker, because the owner can be responsible for that deductible on the condo corpse policy.
Yeah.
50 grand deductible.
And so that, and just to go further to that, when I was working with a lot in, like we work a lot in BC, that there is no legislation legislating the amount that they can charge for that condo deductible buy down. So I've seen up to 500,000. So when someone's buying a condo there, they have to buy condo deductible buy down insurance to cover that 500,000. So the condo policies maybe $400 or $500, but then that condo deductible they have to buy over and above. And that's another 500,000-600,000, but they need it because if they cause that damage to the entire condo, they have to pay that condo deductible. So
And they keep that big deductible to keep their policy costs down. right?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
It's just another way of squeezing condo owners a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and that's why BC hasn't legislated anything. They've been saying for probably 3 years now that, oh, the legislation's coming through. I haven't seen anything yet. Just Alberta has, which cross our fingers that it stays there for, especially for condo owners or anybody investing in condos.
This might have been a question for you though, Neil. If we have a client in our car, is our policy part of that, or is it just strictly our car insurance?
That'd be your car insurance, there's elements called accident benefits that are covered within your policy. Now, most policies, if you have a client in your vehicle, it's covered by your automobile policy. Now, this is an aside, but people that are using their vehicles for business use, like I got my truck sitting out there, I do similar work, I'm out and about seeing customers. My vehicle is not rated the same way as my partner's is, it drives to the office. Agents should have what's called business use. It's called a class 07, that's the terminology we use, but that's it's not commercial, it's still a personal line policy, but it's for business use. So if there were to be a claim, and that vehicle's rated for going to and from work, or maybe it's the vehicle's rated as a pure personal vehicle, like going to the grocery store, the insurance company does reserve the right to deny a claim. So that's probably your biggest issue, is making sure that the classification of the vehicle is accurate. If you're carrying a client in your vehicle, that is covered. But the most important thing is making sure that the agents have their vehicles properly insured under the right classification. They've told their agent or their broker what the vehicle's been used for. And then, so they should have that in place. Like, I have another vehicle that I drive 5,000 kilometers a year. I drive it one time a year to a client's house. On a property, I have that business insurance on that vehicle, even though it's pure personal vehicle. I might drive it one day of the year to see a client. I still got that business use insurance on that other vehicle, just in case I get into an incident on my way to that.
Yeah, that's a super important risk for realtors that are driving all over the place with their vehicles. Super important, just to let them know, because if you don't, and you may have a client in your car and it's not rated properly, they may deny the claim.
I can send an email on that, so you can maybe I'll word it going, and you can, so you have that in your distributed.
It's a big one.
I'll send an email on that later for sure.
Yeah, so just to wrap it up, Lloyd's Sad can do anything from a renter's insurance policy to large commercial. We do large commercial property management. We do oil and gas companies. We work with your mom and pop grocery stores. We have a yoga program for yoga instructors. There's any kind of insurance you need, we have. So any questions? Because we're here.
Well, they seem rather quiet, but
They are.
that's great.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys coming in and going over that with us today. Because again, this is why it's important to just have, insurance brokers come in, every now and then and just remind us of the importance of it. And, I just learned something this morning, like that buy down on the deductible. Like I wasn't aware of this, a $500,000 buy down, like that blows me away. I mean, to think that there might be some people that own a condo in BC right now that could be faced with a $500,000 deductible is blows my mind. But even $50,000 here in Alberta, hey. So you know, these little things are very important, and you know, it's again, these are the things that set us apart. I think one of the things that I get most frustrated about is people that are buying that don't want to take the time to sit down and really learn how to do this. You know, we talk about this quite a bit about people who are, they're anxious to go and see properties, or anxious to buy a condo, even first-time buyers, never bought a property before. Oh, there's a condo downtown. I want to go see it. This one really caught my eye. I'd like to go and take a look at it. And then they want to make an offer right away. And there's so many different moving parts as to what they should consider. You know, when we sit down with people and go over every little detail, they learn. And insurance is a big part of this. You know, I mean, because over the years, I have seen some really tough situations with people that didn't have enough insurance. And I'll give you a good example of one. I can think of actually probably 25 of them if I really dug deep, but I'll never forget many, many years ago, I was out in Airdrie on Bayside Point. So Bayside Point was a townhouse, that was being built. They were all brand new. And I was representing a buyer that was buying in there, and they, you know, the project wasn't completely finished, and the person that we bought from, it was basically a resale. They had moved in. They'd only been in there for about maybe a month, and then they resold it. They put it on the MLS. We bought it, and my clients moved in. 3 days later, after they moved in, the place caught fire. And much of that project had burned down. Their place had entirely burned down. Now, we looked at the condo docs. It was interesting. They were there was insurance. We didn't dissect the insurance like we should have. The builder had insurance on it, but they hadn't even formed a condominium board yet. And so so the builder was more in control because there was still more than 50% of the units still hadn't sold. So we came to realize after their place had completely burned down, number one, they hadn't documented even what they owned. Like they had upgraded the appliances. They had leather furniture that they bought. They didn't document any of that. So when they went to the insurance company to try to make a claim, the insurance company had questions around that, and they weren't willing to fully compensate them for some of those upgrades because they couldn't prove that they had it. But here's the kicker. The insurance didn't have enough to cover the rebuild. When they looked at the cost of the rebuild now to clean that up and rebuild it, each unit was short 20 grand. My clients were first-time buyers. I think at the time, it was like the condo was like $225,000. They had scraped together their 5% down, and now they're to get back into their place after it was built, they needed another $20,000. So, you know, you can see insurance is a big deal. And there were a lot of people that were caught on that had the same problem. So now you're suddenly paying $20,000 more to get back into a place that you bought it for like $225,000. Now you're into it for $245,000. So this was a terrible, stressful time. So, you know, this is, when I hear about these kind of stories, this is why insurance is a big part of it. And every one of us as real estate agents, even though we're not insurance brokers, we need to be vigilant at explaining the importance of talking to a good insurance broker. So, and this is why Lloyd said you should have Neil and Jill's number on your phone and direct these people to talk to them, and make sure that they're covered. They're buying a condo, whatever they're buying. And this is certainly a big one, because look at how much new construction we bought that we work with buyers on. You know, like I look at an insurance policy for a condo project. I can't tell if that's enough. I don't know. I mean, I don't understand them well enough to know. You look at them and it looks great. Oh, $2.9 million. You know, it's like, oh, that's a big number, but I don't know the real logistics of that. An expert needs to look at that and go, you know what, that that policy on that complex is probably not enough. And that should be part of the decision. Now, we rely on these, we have people that are condominium document review experts, but these people are not insurance brokers either. I don't even know where they get their training from it for condominium document review people for trying to determine whether there's enough insurance on a complex, because they're not insurance brokers. So this is something to be aware of.
If I can jump in on
Yeah.
that. We have our own risk management team that goes in and will look at a condo building. And they will tell you what needs to be done for insurance as well. Like that's free from us. Usually you have to pay about 10 grand for a risk manager to come in and when someone's like looking at buying the condo or they've just built it and they're wondering what needs to be done still, that's part of our service. It's included. So kind of
And that's for an individual condo?
no, that's for the condo building.
Yeah, for the condo building, right.
buildings. Yeah.
Yeah.
The individual, this question up there is an interesting one. I believe that at the time they purchased it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. Every
So,
policy.
and then just a second, let me just read the questions, everyone knows. What type of enhancement endorsement can be added to a property insurance policy that would allow the insured to take a payout versus having to replace or rebuild? For example, in Jasper, if an owner did not want to rebuild and start over elsewhere.
So commercially, I guess when you buy any insurance, if you have what we call replacement cost on it, you got replacement cost new and then you have depreciated value, what we call actual cash value. So if you do not replace your property, then the insurance company will negotiate what the actual cash value is. So you might get the depreciated value of that property. So there's always that option. It is built into all policies. Now, commercially, if you say you wanted a replacement cost, but you didn't want to build it on the same site, say it's a commercial building, or we see a lot in agriculture where something burns down, you go, I want to rebuild my building, but don't put it on this location. I want to build the building 4 blocks to the north. That needs a special endorsement. Basically, they call it the same site endorsement. But every policy, if you decide, hey, you know what, I'm not going to rebuild this property, you can choose not to, but then you're not going to get the full replacement cost. The insurance company will work with you on what we call a depreciated value or actual cash value. There's no endorsement required, but you just won't get the replacement cost new, that's all. You'll get a lower amount.
And sometimes with a rebuild policy, if it says it will rebuild it at what the cost is to rebuild at in today's market.
Mhm.
So the exact same home to rebuild today is probably quite a bit more than what it was originally. So they will pay that difference. So say it's $200,000 more to rebuild your home today than what it was insured for at the time. They pay the extra $200 to rebuild at.
Yeah, so in home
Rebuild
insurance, there's a difference called guaranteed replacement cost.
Yeah.
So every year with home insurance, which is different from commercial, is our personal lines team will have software that'll help determine what the replacement cost value of the property is. If you own homes, you've probably gone through that experience every year. Your policy renews. Say that your policy renews at 500,000. 6 months later, the market's gone crazy and the property is now worth $600,000 to rebuild. If you have that guaranteed replacement cost, the insurance company will pay 600 grand, even though you paid on 500,000. Now, that's only in personal lines. We don't see that in commercial. On commercial buildings, for those of you that deal with commercial properties, there is that mechanism isn't in place in most, if not all, commercial policies. So hopefully we've answered that question.
Yeah, hopefully everybody online heard that. I don't know.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, hopefully.
It was kind of a long answer to your question, but Kim, if you didn't hear that, also feel free to reach out to Neil. He can give you a little bit more of a detail on that. So I don't know, has anybody else got last questions on it? I mean, this is your last chance to, oh, she did hear that. That's good. It's our microphone's actually working pretty good here. All right, I was trying to actually figure out how I can share my screen again, and I don't know, I'm having a trouble trying to figure this out. I don't know what happened to how I get there. It just kind of disappeared on me. Oh, there it is. It's arrived again. Okay, good. There we go. Can you guys still see my screen?
No,
Okay, there we go. There we are. Good, I'm gonna shift gears here for a minute, and, you know, by the way, you guys are welcome to stay a little longer if you want to, but if you have to get going, we're gonna shift gears and talk a little bit about what we're gonna try to do next year for real estate. But I do want to thank Neil and Jill for coming in. That was awesome. They've been, by the way, these guys have been great to work with. You guys have been fantastic since we met you. You've been very supportive, and you're always you always pick up your phone right away and respond to my emails right away. You're probably better at responding back to emails than I am. So every one of you will find that their service is actually pretty good. Maybe it's that family-owned business concept that seems to be a little bit better. You don't get lost in the shuffle. Because I can tell you, my last broker, he was a good guy, but he wasn't easy to reach.
And I think that we really work as a team at Lloyd's Hat as well. So if you can't get a hold of Neil, contact me and I'll find him if you need him.
Yep.
So, and vice versa as well, so.
Okay,
You are on your lower camera.
I'm on my lower camera. Oh, there we go. All right.
I'm gonna head out.
All right.
I've got some other-
Thanks, Jill. Oh, yeah, let's not forget your stick. There we go.
I do have
Yeah,
presentations
Yeah, thanks, you know.
for condo insurance, for personal lines insurance, for high net worth insurance, and differences between the condo corp insurance versus why you need individual condo insurance programs too. I would have had like
Yeah.
12 presentations for you.
You could, you,
So I
that
can,
that
I
would
can
be,
forward some to you.
yeah, that would be great if you could send that to me. Thank you. So, yeah, for some reason that camera's not working. Yeah. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird that, it's one of those days. So anyway. Yeah. Okay, now it's on. See, I can't explain it. Technology. Give me a second here. Because I'm going to show you guys something that many of you have already seen before, but it's that time of the year again to revisit this. And every year I show this, and every year only a small amount of you ever actually do what I'm going to show you. And some of you wonder why year after year your business looks relatively the same. And it's because we don't look at our business as closely as we should. And this is something that, you know, I saw, it was actually Richard Robbins that put this out. You know, it was, I don't know, it was probably around 2010 that I first saw this. And I looked at it, and every year I've filled in the numbers, and I've set, it's not just goal setting, it's actually setting, you know, what you're going to do as far as your daily routine. 2 weeks ago, if you guys remember this, I talked about Atomic Habits, because I'm studying that book. Like, I'm not just reading it, I'm actually studying it. And Atomic Habits, interestingly enough, like he says in the book, don't worry so much about your goals. Goals aren't that great. What you need to worry about is your habits. And actually, when you look at this top-down business calculator, this is really all about habits. It's a mixture of habits and goals. And I don't know how many times I have always said, you got to work, you know, on your business in the mornings, you got to work in your business in the afternoon or whatever. But, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be every morning, but every single day every one of us has to work on our business. On our business means you're paying attention to everything that you're doing. You know, what are your numbers? How many leads are you actually generating weekly? Most agents couldn't tell you. They don't track it. They don't track how many times somebody is reaching out. They don't track where those leads are coming from. You know, we've all heard of the 80-20 rule, that 20% of your, or 80% of your business comes from 20% of your past clients. It's very true. Like, one really good past client could refer you a lot of business. And it would make sense to, if you do have a past client like that, why wouldn't you have a program that would specialize in rewarding them a little bit more and really working with them, doing some things with them to have them continue to send you business? So that's all part of following your top-down calculator and knowing where your business is coming from. So if you take a look here, you can fill this in, and I'm going to have Morgan put this up on our CBMC office website. In fact, it may be there right now, but if it's not, it will be there by the end of today. But you can see source of business. Now, this is just what I had, because I had FUB, which is Follow Up Boss. And that's just my CRM I was using, but I've got prospecting. So you've got FSBOs, you've got expired listings if you're going to be going after that. You know, what are you going to generate in sending out flyers? If you're going to have a flyer program, you know, what would you expect that you would get from the amount of business that you would send out? This is why this is so important to understand this, because obviously there's a direct correlation between how many flyers am I going to send out in the course of 12 months and what would be my percentage be that I should get in return of those flyers. And it also causes you to focus on what is your message in your flyer, because flyers work if you have the right messaging. So, you know, if I was sending out, say, for example, 500 flyers per month, you know, so that's 6,000 flyers in a year. Well, what percentage do you think I should get from that? What do you think, Dan? I mean, out of 6,000 flyers, how much business should you do from that?
All the time.
If your message was good, that's the whole thing. It's not just a flyer. It has to be the right message, right? But out of 6,000 flyers, you know, the numbers that I'm seeing, and I was just at the Craig Proctor conference in Toronto last week. And the numbers that we're seeing is you should be looking at about 2 to 3% conversion. That seems, it seems high to me because I haven't had that good of success, but they talked a lot about the messaging again. Like, if you're called to action, all the details of the flyer, is the color just right? Is the call to action just right? Are you getting people that want to do business with you because of what you're offering? And there was something said that was very, very profound to me that has really been ringing in my head ever since, is that I had one of the realtors that did a presentation. He's going to do about $3 million in Kitchener-Waterloo this year in gross commission income. He's been a realtor since 2015. He's going to do $3 million in gross commission income this year. And what he said was profound, because he said, when I started, he said, when I sent out flyers, people called me because of what I offered. Now they call me because of who I am. And that just really resonates to me, and it should resonate to all of you. There's a lot of you that don't have billboards all over town. A lot of you don't have your name splashed all over the area you do business in. You've got, maybe some of you have got a pretty good sizable database, and you're I'll say somewhat well known in your community, you know, but if you're not getting people calling you every month because of who you are, they're going to end up calling you because of what you offer. That'll be it. And it actually makes sense to me, because Dan, if I don't know you, why would I call you? There's 8,000 realtors around Calgary. Why would I call you when I don't know you? There's only one reason I would, because you're offering something that looks interesting. Now, obviously, if I saw you were out in Strathmore and everywhere I looked was one of your signs, everywhere I looked was one of your billboards, and I saw that name Dan all over town, I'd probably just call you because you look like the guy that knows Strathmore. That would make sense to me. I would probably call, and that's why when Tony Jahal said that, they'll eventually call you for who you are. So this is why I mentioned this. Your flyers, everything that you offer, if it's not because they simply know you, it is going to be, what is your offering. So be very aware of that. It can be as simple as the free moving truck that we have in our brokerage. Simple thing. Not everybody offers a free moving truck. You'd be amazed how many people might just call you just for that. You got to remember, when you're marketing, when you're trying to get, and it doesn't matter whether it's even a past client or whether it is someone that doesn't know you, if something in your message causes them to want to reach out, that's all we really need, because most of you are skilled that if someone called up and said, hey, Rika, tell me about this free moving truck program. I'm thinking of buying a house. How does that work? Now, if someone just called and said that, that starts a conversation on all kinds of things. And if you're skilled at this, which most of you are, you can turn that into an appointment, which will ultimately lead to a sale. We need, in 2025, I would say most of us, some of you are getting phone calls, some of you are getting enough phone calls where you're really busy, and that's great. I'm happy for you, because I know a few of you that are doing really well. Your phone's been ringing off the hook. But there are many of you, you're not getting a lot of reach outs. You're not getting enough people reaching out to you. And that's really the name of the game coming into 2025. We are in an environment now where when you look at all of the marketing platforms that are available to you, it's about getting people to reach out to you. And that conference I was at, that was really what they emphasized is having the right message, because it's not easy to get people on the phone. It still works. You can still call people. Cold calling still exists. It hasn't gone by the way of the dinosaur, but it is much, much harder than it is, from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's much, much harder. Getting people to reach out to us is really the name of the game. And you'll have a much better success with it, but it's got to be the right messaging. So all the platforms we have, social media is a big deal, although most realtors terrible at it. I got to say, I look at it. I mean, I'm just like, when I see, just sold another house, there's nothing unique or makes me want to call you for that. That's great that you just sold another house, but I look at that and go, how does that really benefit me, right? But if you got a different message that cause a cause for action, especially when they don't know you, that's where you want to go with it. And everybody has access to these platforms. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, we have access to that. Cheap way of marketing yourself. Flyers. I was amazed when Tony Jahal said he started his flyer campaign in 2015, and I was blown away by that, because I was like, oh my goodness, in 2015, I didn't even want to do flyers, because I completely got out of flyers because I didn't find that they were working. I just didn't really connect the dots, and maybe my messaging was wrong. But he built his business on starting with flyers and doing some pay-per-click marketing to his website in 2015. And then he grew it to the point where he started going into radio advertising. Now he's spending $20,000 a month on radio advertising. Realtor.ca and sign calls. I mean, that's kind of a wild card when it comes to that, because that's only going to be based on how many listings that you have. Open houses. Now, to me, if you really see value in doing open houses, if this is going to be a part of your business for 2025, why not have a strategy that goes with it? See, every one of these sources of business really should have a strategy that goes with it. I mean, if it's just, okay, at the last minute, I'm going to do this open house, I'm going to put some signs up. Sure, you're going to probably pick up a bit of business just because you're likable. Somebody walked in, they don't have a realtor, and you might end up, selling a house. Dan got lucky and sold a house for, what was it, $3 million recently at an open house. I mean, that's kind of a lucky deal. That doesn't happen very often. That may be the only time that happens in your entire career, by the way. But most of the time, they don't buy that house. Most of the time, you have to have some skill, and they're going to buy another property. But that's the power of open houses, is you're creating an environment where people are coming in and you're meeting people and they're interested in real estate. So you need to have a way that demonstrates that you're the person that they should probably work with. And not only that, you should have a way of getting more people coming to your open house. I've had some pretty good success this year doing that 1 hour open house. I personally like it. I like that people have to come within 1 hour, but we have to have a way of being able to get their contact information and then be able to follow up with them. That's generally how open houses work. But think about this for a minute. If you did, let's say, 1 open house per month, every month in 2025, on average, if you did a pretty good job of getting people to come in, how many people would come to your open house on average, Julie?
About 12 usually.
Okay, so let's just say 12. All right. Well, let's say, and we're being pretty conservative, so that we'll say that's 4 groups of 3. All right. So that's really, because out of 12 people, that's probably about 4 or 5 are actual buyers, because they do come in groups of 2 or 3 people, right? So that's approximately, we're being pretty conservative, just did 1 open house a month. That's about, we'll say 50 people, 50 actual buyers or sellers over the course of 12 months. 50 that you're meeting. And these people that come to open houses, generally speaking, they are pretty interested in real estate. Their timing might not be next month or 6 months from now, but they're pretty interested in real estate. So that's 50 people. And that's just doing 1 per month, conservative. How much business should you get from 50 people that come to these open houses? How many of those people should you actually sell a house to if you do this right? Any idea? That's a good guess. That's 10. That's 10. That's 10 deals. How much is 10 deals in by way of dollar amount on average? It's about 100 grand. That's just, you see when you break it down this way and you look at it, like you really come down and think, okay, this is why there should be a strategy. That's 100 grand. And we're being conservative here. I'm going to tell you something. Kyle Dexter, I don't even know how much money he's going to make this year off open houses, but I'll bet you he's probably at about 250 this year from open houses. So these things do work, but you got to have a strategy. That's why, I know the Starnes Group puts a ton of effort into their open houses, a ton of effort, because they know there's business there. A lot of you don't. So I'm just saying, if you don't like open houses, that's fine. You don't have to do them. I'm not saying you have to do open houses to be successful in this business. You don't. But I'm just saying, but if you're going to do them, make it a business. Put some effort into it. Have a strategy. Have a system that you follow it constantly, because open houses are just like anything else. You got to get good at it. There's a skill set to an open house that you got to get good at. I've been to open houses where the realtor's sitting there watching the football game. Yeah, have a look around. 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll be right here watching the football game. I have seen that. Yeah. You know why they're doing that open house? That realtor didn't want to be there. Their client just made them go. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go. And then you see other people. I remember when Frank and Kate were in our brokerage, they put a lot into open houses. I went to one of their open houses. It was amazing. They had the music going. You came in, there was some music. They had drinks going. They made it an event. It was like a fun event. It was a social thing. The computer was up on the countertop, and they were showing, you know, other homes that are available in the area, some pricing. So there was some data there, but they offered everybody some snacks, some drinks, and it was just it was almost like a little bit of a party that they had. They had all kinds of flags outside. Like, they really put a lot of effort into it. I walked in there and they had about, I don't know, there was probably 10, 12 people in their open house, and they did a fair bit of business from it. So that's why on here, your source of business, you should just write down what it is you're going to do. Where are you going to get your business next year? Landing page, website. Do you want to put effort into, you know, driving traffic to a website? There's still business that you can get from that to this day, but it is a tough gig. Take it from me. I've been playing that game for a long time. It's a very tough gig. A lot of times people will say, well, online leads are no good. Well, here's the thing about online leads you have to remember. Online leads are not open house leads. These are people who are interested in real estate. But again, it comes to your messaging. If you just ran an ad on Facebook, okay, think about this for a minute. If I'm scrolling on Facebook, I probably didn't turn Facebook on because I was interested in real estate. I turned it on because I'm sitting bored and I'm just kind of scrolling and see what's going on. But this ad caught my attention. How many people, seriously, have you done this, Sandro? An ad caught your attention and you just signed in? Have you done that? Yeah, you've done it. You kind of what? Half interested? Yeah. We've all done it. It's kind of like, I've used this analogy before. It's kind of like walking down 9th Avenue in Inglewood. And, you know, or even it could be in Kensington, could be in Strathcona and Edmonton. And you have a lot of like cool stores that are around there. You're just kind of walking around and somebody pops out of the store and goes, hey, we got this great t-shirts that we're putting on sale today. Do you want to come inside and have a look? You might go, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, why not? I'm here. And you just walk into the store. And they're like, yeah, have a look at this. I wasn't looking for t-shirts. You just jumped out in front of me and invited me in. That's kind of what a Facebook ad is. And this is one of the reasons why realtors get frustrated with online leads. There's an interest there, but all that means is now you have their contact information and you're doing some follow-up until maybe at such time that they might be ready. That's why a lot of those type of leads take a very, very long time. And you have to have a very, very good follow-up process in place to follow up with those leads. Otherwise, forget it. But that's the kind of marketing you're doing. But if you're driving traffic through Google, think about Google for a minute. Google means, if I'm going to Google, first of all, I'm looking for something specific. I'm now typing in a keyword, real estate, whatever. You know, maybe I'm looking in Cochrane. I might go Cochrane real estate, or I might even be looking specifically for a community within Cochrane. So I'm typing that in. What that means is that I'm taking some kind of action. And then what happens is there's a list of websites that come up. Most of us, when we type something in, we look at the list of websites that come in, but now there's a second action that I'm taking. The second action is I have to click on one of these websites. That's an action. Very, very different than the Facebook ad. The Facebook ad, it's one click and I go in and I start doing something. Here, I've already taken 2 steps. And now there's a third step, because if I get onto the website, I'm looking at getting, I'm looking at the website. The website is offering me something. I have to take a third step now in order for me to make contact with the person that is running that website. That's why Google is still a very, very good way in order to generate business. I would also put YouTube in there as well. Do you want to have a YouTube strategy? YouTube is very similar to Google. Well, I mean, YouTube is owned by Google, but those are still steps that someone has to take. They're watching part of your video, they're clicking on something, they're putting information in, And oftentimes on YouTube, they're watching your video and they're building a relationship with you. I can't even underestimate how good YouTube can be for that. So that might be some of your source of business. Referral business. Well, I mean, how many of you have a solid referral system in place for your past clients? Every single one of you knows this. So if you coming into 2025, this is something you want to do right now. Here we are, we're almost Thanksgiving 2024. If your referral program is not put in place in the next 30 to 60 days, you don't have one for 2025 and you're missing the boat. Take a look at your database. Let's say you have 100 people right now in your database. And let's say, we'll even be conservative. Let's say 50 of those people have done business with you in the past. 50 of them are just people that are in your database of people that you know. So out of those 100 people, if you have a really good referral program for them, so there's an incentive for them to reach out to you, you're marketing to them, you're giving them updates. When I say updates, I mean meaningful updates, good updates, stuff that's going on in the market, helpful information, you know, plus you're following up with a phone call as well. You are in their life. They know you and they feel that you have concern for them. You know their kids, you know the name of their pets. Like that kind of a relationship. That's the kind of relationship I'm talking about. If you're that deep with these 100 people, here's the big question. How many do you think will send you business? What do you think, Sandro?
Like referral business?
Yeah. Repeat and referral out of 100 people. If you have that kind of a relationship. 25 to 35%. Dan, would you agree with that? Yeah. What about you, LeVue? You think that's reasonable? Yeah. All right. So if that's true, that's now 25 to 35 possible transactions in 2025 just from that. So let's be conservative and we'll say 20%. 20%. And what's the average commission, Dan? Sitting in Calgary, it's a little bit higher than Edmonton, but sitting in Calgary, we're probably sitting at about 10 grand. That's actually $200,000 in income. I just showed you just that. That's 100 people in your database done right. That's real numbers. $100,000 in income. We just talked about one open house per month. We figured out that that's $100,000 in income. That's $300,000 in income right there, just from an open house and your database. I'm not even including all the other stuff that we just talked about. Do you see why I'm passionate about this? Well, this is why I'm giving you guys this formula right now to be looking at this. You don't get to that level without having a strategy. But this isn't rocket science stuff. Like it really isn't. There's, anybody seriously that has half a brain, that's a licensed agent that just implements the stuff that I'm talking about and has an actual strategy and a system that works on their business and just tweaks it constantly, but comes into 2025 with a plan and has it ready to go, makes $300,000 minimum. The market's big. We're going to do, well, I mean, it's looking like we're probably going to do about 27,000 sales in Calgary this year. I think Edmonton's going to come in around 18, 19,000. So if we're just on MLS, don't forget, that's not even including, I don't even know how many new construction. I have no idea how much new construction is sold or how many commissions are paid out from new construction in a year, but I'm sure there's a ton. But just on MLS alone, if we hit $27,000, how many commissions paid out is that? Yeah, it's 54,000, isn't it? Is that right? Am I reading that right?
27,000 transactions.
Yeah, 27,000 transactions. There's two commissions for each transaction, right? So that's approximately 54,000 commissions paid out. And the average commission is around 9 grand. So 54,000 commissions. You need, we just talked about this, if you got 100 from open houses, or sorry, if we did, not 100, I mean, I think we said we would have approximately 20 sales, no, 10 sales, getting ahead of myself. So 10 sales in open houses, there's your 100, and 20 from your database, so that's 30 sales. This works out to 300,000. So 30 sales, taking the average commission, is $300,000 in income. 54,000 commissions paid out, and all you need to do is get 30 of them to hit 300,000 in income. What do you think, Olivia? Doesn't that seem possible? 30 out of 54,000? Are we asking for too big of a piece of the pie? That's why I always say, I don't want the whole pie. I just want a small piece. I just need a really small piece of a very, very big pie, and I can actually have a very successful business here. 500 grand. You know, that's the other thing that blew me away. I was at that conference. I met this realtor. He was living in Vancouver. He was actually doing direct marketing. So he was the person, he actually worked for the company that you would come in, realtors would come in and they would design their flyers. And he said that this small company he was working with, they moved into a real estate office in Vancouver. And he happened to see one day what the commission checks were on some deals that were done. And he looked, he did a double take and went, wow. Like they came in and bought these flyers. They just got like a $40,000 commission check. And he's like, wow. He says, I think I want to be a real estate agent. So he seriously, this is his story. His name is Jack Clark. He's in Kingston, Ontario. You can look him up if you want to. Jack Clark, Kingston, Ontario. He's only been a realtor for 3 years. He so he says to his wife, you know, I think I want to do real estate. And his wife says to him, well, you know, I think we should not do this in Vancouver. I guess his wife is from Montreal. He's from Toronto. And he said, this is a true story. They literally picked Kingston because it was in the middle between Montreal and Toronto. And they figured it was a good spot to move there. And nobody knew them, but they figured this way it was a close drive to Montreal to visit her family and a close drive to Toronto to visit his family. So that's what they did. They packed up, they moved to Kingston, and he targeted a system. He got into the direct marketing, and this year, 3 years later, they're hitting. He said they'll do almost $1 million in gross commission income this year. He was on the stage just last week. 3 years in the business. You can't tell me that if you just implement this stuff, and that's why I met this guy, by the way, and I'm gonna tell you right now, he seems like a nice guy. I talked to him. I actually met him at breakfast. He doesn't have the gift of the gab, let me tell you. Dan, you have better communication skills than he does, trust me. Like you're one of those guys people just like, and you can talk to people. That's not Jack Clark. I'm telling you, he's nice. He's a nice guy, but he's a bit of an introvert, and he's going to do $1 million in 3 years. So my eyes were opened up, and that's why I'm sharing some of this with you guys. And all of this is simply Jack Clark did one thing well, and that is he implemented a system. That's it. It's a marketing system, and he invested in it. He put money out and he took some chances, made sure his messaging was there, and here he is to this day. So all of you should spend some time this coming weeks right now in October and be prepared for 2025. And I'm going to promise you this, if you do it, just get your system together, follow it to a T. Every one of you that does it will have your best year ever in 2025. I promise you, you will. Because the business is going to be there. We will be fine in Alberta. Edmonton and Calgary are going to have great years next year. I don't know if we're gonna do more than 27,000 in sales next year as well, but who cares? Who cares if we do 25,000, 30,000, 35,000? All of you will get your piece of the pie next year if you do it. Okay? That's all I got for today. Don't forget, next week is Thanksgiving. So we're closed. We don't have a meeting. Besides, I'll be out in Victoria visiting Kathleen's kids. And then the following week, don't come to Calgary for the office meeting because I'm actually going to be in Edmonton doing. That's right. I will be in Edmonton on the, is that the 21st?
It is the 21st.
It's, yeah, so October 21st, we will be in Edmonton. You can go there and visit your girlfriend if you want and come to the meeting. We'll be there doing it live from Edmonton. So, yeah, and, yeah. And that's when Carl, I believe, is doing his presentation on, what do you call it again? Why is it so? Hash damming, that's right, yeah. He's gonna talk about that, which I think everyone will find very interesting. So everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'll leave you with this final thought, because I just got back from North Carolina, by the way. I was there for the hurricane. I actually flew into it. And I will tell you something. I came home more than I've ever experienced as I was flying home and I got on the plane. After what I saw in North Carolina and what I saw in Georgia, I am eternally grateful to be living in this province. Yeah, like.
We won't complain about the winter so much.
No, I just like, I just like entire towns have no power for like a month. I just don't know how you deal with that. Like, I just can't imagine like in an entire month. Can you just imagine no power? You're just completely shut down. You cannot do anything. So, you know, I witnessed it. I saw houses with trees through the living room, power lines down all over the place, but literally in just in entire towns that were 50, 60,000 people had no power. So this Thanksgiving, be thankful. This is a time to be grateful. We live in an amazing place. I've traveled a lot, and especially between the US and Canada, we live in the best place. So this Thanksgiving, be thankful that you live here. Living in Edmonton and Calgary, awesome places to live, awesome places to do business, and we all can have a lifestyle that a lot of people just don't get to enjoy, and we can take full advantage of it. We're in the right business. This is an amazing opportunity to be in real estate, living in Edmonton and Calgary. So let's take full advantage of it, but let's start by having, you know, some gratitude this coming Thanksgiving, and, you know, spend some time with the people you love and care about, and tell them you love them, and then make a promise to all of them that you're going to do big things in 2025. Okay. All right. Be well, everyone.